I was charged originally with 8 counts of capital attempted murder against police officers, possession of a machine gun, and possession of a silencer. I mean, the charges carried like 200 years. And I said, wow, I'm in trouble here, man. I need to straighten out. And this is all, I mean, I came to this point because, of course, I was abusing drugs and drinking, and I had gotten a girl pregnant, and she was having my kid, my first child. I mean, I'm an Italian. I mean, we take care of our kids. I did everything I could to get that kid from her, and she would not give me my kid. She instead went and put the kid up for adoption. So I attributed a lot of my mental state to losing my kid, who I eventually found.
Right.
You know? So those were that's what led to the shootout, and you know, of course, my abuse of drugs and alcohol. And I really wasn't dependent on drugs and alcohol, but what I did is I used to utilize drugs and alcohol to assuage my insanity, because I was crazy. I was a crazy kid. I mean, I was a 95-pound kid. Always wanted to fight the biggest people because I had Napoleon complex. So I would drink and do drugs just to you know, to add to my my insanity. And I did some really crazy stuff. I mean, I used to mix drugs. Like I'd mix Quaaludes and mescaline and drink it down with a bottle of Jack Daniels. Because I was like in search of the ultimate high. What I found out, that the ultimate high is death. When you start playing with drugs at that style, you're dancing, you're doing a jig on the line of death. And that's what I was doing. So it was only a matter of time before I did something stupid.
Right.
And then I did. My coup de grace was this shootout with the police, you know, this 5-hour standoff with the Manchester police with a machine gun. You know, I was snorting coke, and I had been drinking for a couple of days. And I was like, what am I doing? At one point, I actually took the gun. I had the machine gun to my head, and I was going to kill myself. And I said, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have the courage to kill myself. So, you know, I was out of bullets. It was just over. You know, it was over. So I just threw the clips out, and I walked out. And that was it. I was just beaten. You know, it just nothing mattered anymore. I had lost my kid. And I just didn't care. You know, I had lost my direction, my focus, my ambition. I think one of the major moments of change for me after I had the shootout with the police and ended up in prison, I ended up in maximum security, right? I was locked down for 23 hours a day for 7 days a week, allowed out of my cell one time, 1 hour a day. And what happened was, in the special housing unit, they did a adult basic education testing. And my test results came back that I had a 7.4 level of education, and I was 23 years old. I was completely humiliated. And of course, I had just been sentenced to 22.5 to 45 years for the shootout, as well as given 6 additional years concurrent for possession of a machine gun and a silencer, because I had a machine gun during the incident. So I mean, I was, you know, to me, you know, life was, you know, I hit the bottom. Right. You know, I hit the bottom. And I was so humiliated by that testing. I said, oh, I got to change this. And I knew that the only way that I would ever be able to redeem myself and get out of prison was if I had done something just as outrageous to get out. And that had gotten me in there to get out. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that was available, the only avenue that was available was education. So I figured either I write a great book or I educate myself. But one of the ironies of my confinement is that I had a profound talent for law. And I became a very, very well-known and respected jailhouse lawyer, actually attaining the highest sanction that prison administration can give you, an involuntary transfer to the most violent prison on the East Coast. I ended up at Summers State Prison in Connecticut. So that was probably the defining moment for me. I was so humiliated by those educational scores that I had a 7.4 level of education that I had to change that. So Giovanni's born, you know, and of course I'm thrilled. I got my baby boy here. And, you know, within 6 weeks he starts getting these deadly infections. And they, you know, they can't figure out what it is, you know. So they'd give him, he'd go into the hospital and they would give him a, you know, what they call a shotgun blast of, you know, all these, you know, really powerful antibiotics like vancomycin. I mean, really powerful stuff. But I can remember I was walking out of the hospital, right? And I had Giovanni's carrier and these get well balloons, right? And I got a Fu Manchu and I got a full-length leather jacket. I mean, I'm an imposing man, and I'm walking out of the hospital and tears are streaming down my face, and I'm carrying this carrier with no baby. And, you know, the people are they're just parting out of my way, because, you know, here they see this man, you know, with tears coming down his face, and he's got an empty carrier, you know, child's carrier. So, of course, they got to be thinking the worst. And I remember I got to the vehicle and I got in and I just tried to rip the steering wheel off the car, just beat it. And I tried to rip it off, and I pulled out and I cried for like 10 minutes, and then I said, you know, I got to get it together now. We need to take care of my kid. And that was it, you know. So then we ended up in Boston Children's Hospital, and it was November now, and Giovanni was born July 24th. So now here we are at Boston Children's Hospital in November, and they sat us down and they told us that Giovanni has Nemo and that he needs a bone marrow transplant, and that he will die before his first birthday if he doesn't get a transplant. Now he's 5 months old, and they said the chances of him finding a transplant are 1 in 20,000. So, you know, Christina's just devastated. I mean, this is a woman who had had a child and who had died, and she'd probably blame herself. So I turned to the table of doctors, you know, Sung Young Pai and some other doctors from Dana-Farber and Children's, you know, all the immunologists, everybody that was dealing with Giovanni, and I says, it's not a problem. I'll just put 20,000 people in the registry. And they looked at me like I was a complete nut. But, you know, they didn't realize who they were dealing with, right. You know. And Christina looks at them and she says, oh, he'll do it. And then, you know, they gave us the consent form that we had to sign for, you know, for a transplant. And every paragraph ended in can die, may die, will die. Every paragraph, all legalese. So Christina reads it. She can't sign it. She passes it over to me. She says, I can't sign that. And I sign it and I give it back to them. And then I commenced to creating a campaign to save Giovanni that went worldwide.
Right.
Now, I'm the single largest bone marrow recruiter in the country.
Really?
Yep. Wow. I've registered over 35,000, almost 35,294 people, I think it is. And out of those, we have 43 matches, which is completely contrary to the national statistics. Nationally, 1 in 20,000 people is a match.
Yeah.
My drives, 1 in 800. A good man takes care of his family, takes care of business. And, you know, I think, you know, a lot of people will say to me, with respect to Giovanni's fight, you know, with his plight, they say, you know, how could you do that? I couldn't do that, you know, or how'd you do that? I said, I'd do it the same way that you would do it. And if you wouldn't do it, then you shouldn't be a parent. And a lot of people can't do it. You know, a lot of people resign their fate to the doctors. You know, I wasn't going to resign the fate of my son to anybody. You know, I would have did whatever I had to do to save my kid. I don't care what it was, including giving my own life. And, you know, to me, a good man is a man of honor. You know, a man that believes in justice, a man that believes in doing the right thing. I mean, am I a perfect man? No, I'm not a perfect man. I got my flaws. I mean, no one's perfect. You know, but I believe the ideal man is what Socrates or Aristotle espoused. An ideal man is a philosopher king. And a philosopher king is a man of action and a man of thought. That's a good man.